Hey everyone, so I'm not going to keep you in suspense. I'm talking about Usopp. I believe we're set up for a large part of Usopp's storyline in Wano to be him being taken captive by Orochi and the Beast Pirates. So to start with, in any given arc, what can we expect of Usopp's storyline, right? Usopp's story arc is always going to involve him overcoming his cowardice and having to find his strength in some sort of way. I think a lot of people are under the impression that Oda kind of never moves Usopp's character forward because he so frequently has to deal with that same character conflict. But I don't think people get what Oda is doing differently each time. Like, this is something I want to talk about more in depth in the future in maybe an Usopp specific analysis. But here I'll just say that Oda doesn't write Usopp as though, once he's overcome his cowardice once, it's cured permanently. Otherwise, Usopp would have been cured of his cowardice all the way back in Syrup Village. Rather, Oda is always presenting Usopp with new situations that challenge him in new ways, so that he always has to find his courage or grow in a new way each time. Like in Thriller Bark, that was the first time and only time that Usopp had to deal with the responsibility of being the only Straw Hat who was capable of defeating the enemy. The first time where if he can't win, then no one can. Basically, what is normally Luffy's burden was Usopp's for that arc. In Dressrosa, a lot of people were confused why Usopp was acting so cowardly towards the beginning of that arc, but people don't realize that this was the first situation where Usopp actually had to put his life on the line for people he didn't know. This wasn't about Usopp fighting for his friends like he normally does, because he's proven that over and over again, but this was the first time he had to deal with the responsibility of having to win or die trying for a bunch of strangers that he had just met. This was the first situation in the entire series where he actually had to be a hero, and that's why Usopp as a hero was emphasized so much that arc. So I'm not going to go through the entire series talking about all the different ways Oda tries to challenge Usopp. I'll save that for an analysis video, probably way down the line someday, but the point is that Oda's challenge as a writer to keep Usopp interesting is always creating plot lines that put Usopp's courage to the test in ways that we haven't seen before. So always be looking for new ways that Usopp could potentially be tested, right? So now that the Wano arc is rolling, I'm thinking, is this an arc where Oda is going to give us give Usopp a significant conflict? And if it is, then what clues can we already see early in the arc as to what that might be? What we've seen so far is that twice now, Usopp has talked about the hypothetical of, what he would do if he was captured. And he's pretty much said straight up that he would spill the beans right away. The first time he brought it up, it seemed to be a bit of a throwaway joke when, the crew was running away from the capital. And Law was talking about the importance of keeping your mouth shut if you're taken captive. Okay, that alone doesn't mean much, but then he brought it up again. And after we hear that Law's crew has been taken captive, Usopp is again talking to Nami about how quickly he would cave under torture. So brought up once, not a big deal, but mentioned twice, especially this early in the arc. Now I'm thinking it's something to think about. So first of all, let's just say, would being taken captive and having to endure torture unless he gives up his allies be a new way to challenge Usopp's courage? Yes, I think 1000% yes, I would say that would be a new way. Look, Usopp has already demonstrated that at the very least he's ready to put his life on the line for his friends. He's shown us that multiple times throughout the series. Even as a straight up one-for-one trade, you can go back to Thriller Bark where Kuma said, he would spare everyone's lives if they gave him Luffy. And Usopp refused. So that's established. We already know Usopp will put his life on the line for his friends. But then compare that to, say, something like Zoro's test of loyalty in Thriller Bark. Zoro didn't just have to put his life on the line. He had to basically go through hell and back for his captain. And that's why we love that moment so much, because, he went through hell and back for his captain and he took it all without, ever saying a word about it. So I'm not saying that Usopp is going to have, his own nothing happened moment. No, I'm just saying that we've already observed in the series that there are levels to what one will do for one's friends. Yes, when the moment comes down to it, Usopp would refuse to give up his friends even at the risk of his own life. But what if it wasn't just a moment? What if Usopp was held captive for a prolonged period of time and tortured for days and days by what's being portrayed as basically the most brutal pirate crew in the world? Like, the Beast Pirates seem to specialize in breaking people. Even if we haven't quite seen that yet in the Udon prison mine, I'm sure we haven't seen the worst of what they can do to captives, especially considering that King even seems to have been a former Impel Down something. We're not sure yet, but it seems like he was a former Impel Down something. So the potential for challenging Usopp in this way, I think, is there. And Usopp has definitely thrown around this possibility himself. Like, he says it casually that he would give up the alliance, but we know enough of him now that it would in fact be a much more, complicated conflict and challenge for him than that. We would probably get to see Usopp dig deeper than ever before. And so I think the basic potential is there. But really, if we take a step back and talk about it more from a thematic perspective, right? So the themes that this arc and saga seem to be shaping around. Like, to me, loyalty is quickly emerging as an important theme of this entire storyline. I see that emerging in so many ways, just looking at, one, the major division between the good guys of Wano and the bad guys on Orochi's side. That division is defined by loyalty. Who remained loyal to the Kozuki clan, and who betrayed them when Kaido came. So in terms of current events, this is the first major arc where it is confirmed also that there is a major traitor on the good guys' side. So that's a running plotline. And even just recently with Law's crew being captured, it's been stressed explicitly that trust and loyalty is going to be what makes or breaks the alliance's effort. And most importantly with all this, consider how this entire saga began. The formation of this alliance to go to Wano and defeat Kaido, this whole versus 4 Emperors saga, as it's been called, it all began with Zou. And what was the defining moment of Zou? Raizo Dono is safe. So no matter what, even under extreme torture, even under pain of death, limbs chopped off, whatever, friends don't sell out their friends. Loyalty above all else, that was the powerful message that this entire storyline started with. And from everything that we've been seeing, I don't believe that was just an isolated, powerful scene. I believe that does set the theme or the foundation for what this saga was all set to be about just from that initial scene. And looking back at that scene now, the most important thing I see is Usopp's reaction. Like, all the Strawhats are stunned, but Usopp can't even believe it. He can't understand it. He can't comprehend what he just found out. Like, how can you be so courageous, so strong that through days of torture, an entire civilization refuses to sell out one friend? So that's important to me. That comes full circle to what's happening now. All of the Alliance's plans hinge on not a single person leaking their plans, no matter what torture they have to endure. And Usopp is legitimately starting to worry about what will happen if he is put in that position. Could he be as strong as the Minks? So I think we're going to find that out by the end of this arc. For the record, I personally don't think he's going to get captured soon. Like, maybe it happens soon, but going along with my previous theory of the Fire Festival ending in failure, my personal belief is that there are a lot of consequences that will come from that event, from the Fire Festival failure, and one may be Usopp being taken captive. That's my guess, so I don't think this will happen for a while, but I do believe it will happen at some point this arc. So I guess bonus points for me if it's from the Fire Festival. I'll also say bonus points, I think Nami might get captured too. I don't think it's as important for her character, for her to endure this, but she was part of that conversation about what would happen if she or Usopp were captured. And interestingly, just last arc, Whole Cake Island, we almost saw her have to endure torture as well. So she was really freaked out by that possibility, but at the time she didn't want Luffy to rip his arms off to escape, so it's hard to say what would have happened if she had to endure the torture. Like, Oda basically bailed her out of jail just in time before we got the answer to that question. So it's possible he wants to address that again, but mostly I'm confident it's going to be about Usopp. Maybe Nami gets thrown in as well, but mainly it's going to be about Usopp. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, then definitely, like, share, and subscribe.